6th, 2021 PZ meeting will be opened at 7:12. Pledge allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Review of ordinance 684.20, limiting terms for chair position.
Just a reminder that with this ordinance, there's a limitation on chairs. So it was in place in 2020 and there's a 2-year limitation. So Mr. Arment, if you should be appointed again this year, just to note that you would not be eligible to be appointed in 2022. Every year.
Is it every year?
Yes.
So appointment of chair and appointment of vice chair. Motion to approve.
Ralph Arment as chair.
Chair.
Second.
Public participation. If you wish to address the commission, please fill out a public meeting appearance card and present it to the town administrator, preferably before the meeting begins. Pursuant to section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code, citizens wishing to address the commission for items listed as public hearings will be recognized when the public hearing is open. For citizens wishing to speak on a non-public hearing item, they may either address the commission during the public participation portion of the meeting or when the item is considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So at this point, is there anybody that wants to speak to something other than an agenda item? Raise your hand. Discuss and consider approval of the September 1st, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Anybody have any problems with the minutes? Changes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as is.
Second. Second, everybody. All in favor? Unanimous. Regular items, site plan for 1911 East Judah Road. This is a public hearing that was scheduled for last month and was asked to be taken off, so we are continuing the public hearing to hear public comments and consider recommendations to the town council regarding a site plan for Happy Huts LLC, being all of attractive land being described as Block A, Lot 2R, Bartonville Town Hall Edition, Town of Bartonville, Denton County, Texas. The property is generally described as a 2.219 acre tract of land located on the north side of East Judah Road, more commonly known as 2911 East Judah Road, Bartonville, Texas. The Planning and Zoning Commission moved to postpone this item to October 6th, 2021 by a vote of 5-0 at its September 1st, 2021 meeting. So at 7:17, we will reconvene that public hearing.
So the applicant has submitted an application for a site plan for the addition of a little over 14,000 square feet to the existing building, which would bring the total square footage to 18,245 square feet. The proposed addition is a single-story building proposed to be used as a future office and administrative use. The site plan was reviewed against rural business standards, which is the current zoning for this land, and was also reviewed by town staff, engineer, and planning consultant. For the compatibility buffer, the applicant is requesting an 8-foot tall wood fence in place of a brick or masonry wall. The Planning and Zoning Commission may approve the alternative wall construction materials if it accomplishes the same purpose as a brick or masonry wall. There were several variances that were recently approved for this site plan. And that included the maintenance of the existing 73-foot setback to allow for stucco as the primary front facade material, to allow for the roof pitch of 412 on the proposed addition to match the existing building. There is a middle section that will adhere to the 712 roof pitch. To allow for the use of galvalume metal roof material to match the existing roof. To allow for the building without an 80-foot section that does not have a jog, and to allow for gooseneck lighting fixtures with angle shade. No public comments were received for this site plan.
Applicant, you want to tell us?
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Steve Holmeyer. I'm the civil engineer on this particular project. Address is 206 Elm Street, Suite 105 in Bristol, Texas. Really don't have anything extra to add that Ms. Waterman has already indicated or provided to you, but we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Is there anyone to speak for?
My name is Rick Hopper. I live at 1847 East Gia Road. I live next door to the proposed project, and I happen to be the owner of Happy Huts as well. I think the guys that designed that building, I'm going to be the next door neighbor of, did a fine job. And I'm definitely in favor of the project. And I'm happy to take any questions you guys have as well. Anything technical, you can ask Steve, anything else, just fire away. I'm right here.
Opposed? So I guess there's no rebuttal. Hearing is closed to public comment. So, questions? At 7:20, I'm sorry.
What's the reason for wanting the wood fence variance?
So I'm open-minded to the buffer zone between my residence and the rural business, my business project. I would be open to, if you guys said, hey, we'd rather see a tree line, or we would rather see a block wall, or I'm open to what I really want to do, what's really good for the community. We, being right next door to the police department and town council, we want to be kind of fluid, and we do share our parking with the police department. And then whenever there's overflow evenings here, I'm always very accommodating to the parking. We'll wind up about 62 parking spots. I definitely, having living next door, I would definitely want to have a divider between the business and I probably wouldn't, I'm going to occupy a fair amount of the building myself. But the wall, the fence, the wall, I'm not set on a wood fence. Honestly, I don't even love the idea of a wood fence. But I when we get into building the project, the fence is probably the last thing that would go up along with the landscaping. So I feel like, a wood fence would have probably been better to discuss during the adjustment meeting with the Board of Adjustments, the variance. But, if you, I would like to have the liberty actually to decide what to do on that wall. Kind of like once that building gets put up, and then I come back and say, hey guys, I know you guys said thumbs up on the wood fence because it's going to be a really nice wood fence, or a vinyl fence that matches my property, because there's a lot of those vinyl fence are in the area. I'm just really open-minded to what would look best to create just enough division between the business and the residential. Yeah, no, I hope that answers your question.
The fence would also have to go across the north property because there's homes behind it also. And that's the same area where the septic spray part will be. So I think fences look kind of ugly when they get stuff sprayed on them and it discolors them and they look old and icky right off the bat. So is that going to be an issue where water or sprinklers or anything else are hitting that, where, you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
I do,
Where you can
absolutely.
see exactly where everything hits it and then it's
So
washed out.
it's my understanding that we're going to have actually a leach system, an underground leak. We're not going to have the spray, the septic spray. We're going to do an underground system. But you're right about that. And I honestly don't, I'm probably going to rather build a good looking wall along the back, the 8-foot tall wall, just out of respect for those neighbors. I do have to have some openings for landscape maintenance because I can't build a wall more than like 5 or 10 feet from the property line. And I have to maintain that in there. I think I don't want to have to deal with a fence breaking down in 2-3 years anyway. I've been through this. Probably going to wind up building a wall back there.
We have to make a decision tonight. We can't really pass this and say, well, you can make your mind up later.
Okay.
We need to have this
Well, I'm going to
buttoned
make.
down as far as.
How about, can we do this then? I think an up or down would be, I know the neighbors behind us would rather not have, view of, the stuff that's going on over there, even though it's going to be a really, really good looking project. But I would say if you guys told me, we want you to build an 8-foot wall of the entire north and then down maybe at least 20 or 30 feet this way, because I've been out there and analyzing the view from the second property over. I think it's Roy's place. If we come across with the 8-foot and then come back about 20 or 30 feet, that satisfies the neighbors behind us completely. And then if we can, if you would be willing to give me the option to go from that point all the way to the street, to where we did something that was either a green screen or a combination of vinyl fence with some trees going along there. I'd be cool.
So just help me understand why. Is it because your house is there and you want to be able to come back and forth easier, or why? I mean, I think that's this screening wall to protect the neighbors. That's why that's in the ordinance. That's really important. Now, in your case, you live next door, but you might not always. But it helped me understand why you want to stop there and then put something different the rest of the way.
Well, it's, I hate locking something up and it's like, all right, you have to do this. So if you said I have to do, if you allowed me to do wood, there's a pretty good chance when we get to this thing and we're going to do wall along the back and 30 feet this way. I may decide to keep that wall going all the way down, but I don't think I'm going to have to do this I don't think I have to do the 8-foot tall wall. I think a 6-foot wall would be adequate for the rest of it. And I do understand every 100 or 150 feet, I have to have a gate for landscape maintenance purposes and some sort of egress purposes.
Our ordinance, are you saying?
Yeah,
that?
is anybody else familiar with
I
that?
don't,
It's in the ordinance.
what does that say, Sylvia?
Might take me a minute if you'd like to continue with another item.
Okay,
I'd like to see more green.
I honestly, I would like to see green, nature, some sort of tree line. It's gonna be I did in the ordinance, it says that you guys have it within your power to grant me the option of doing a green screen in place of a wall. So I would say that if we could do a good green screen and combine it with either a wood, a good looking high quality wood or vinyl fence that where there's where pedestrians can't just like walk right straight into my residential property, but it would be maybe something a lot that looks like along the back of a lot of the neighbors and behind my house as well, is that the more country 2 or 3 white rails of the fencing. So what we would see is something that's consistent with what's in the area, as well as the beauty of a well landscaped green screen combination. So I think when we asked for a wood fence, probably could have said vinyl.
Here's my 2 things. Number one, I want the neighbors behind it who have been there all along and who this is going to affect them, even though I agree with you, it's a really nice looking building, but it's bigger and there's more roof and all that, which is going to make them feel a lot more like, it kind of looks like a house-ish now compared to what it will be. So I think it's the town's duty to protect the people that are already there with a wall or something that where they feel that they are separated from that and maybe don't have to look at the people walking around and the cars
Absolutely.
parked and all of
And the
that.
headlights, and I get that.
Right, so
And-
I, now I'm only speaking for me. You need to find out from everybody else.
Side needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're.
And
agreeing.
then-
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I want to honor my neighbors. I want to be a good neighbor. And I would say that the north side, and then the only way to really screen Roy's property behind me from visibility of the project would be to come, it's about 20 or 30 feet.
Around the corner.
Yeah, so it goes along the back and then down the west side a little ways. And then we could like taper it down to the green and the white, like fence rail type fence.
Personally, I like that idea.
No, okay, so the residence is to the west of the property, and I have two neighbors, one neighbor directly behind the project, and then one neighbor directly behind my house. Those two guys, we're talking about screening their visibility by going along the north wall and then down about 20, 30 feet toward the west wall. But it would be between my barn and the back of the property where the wall would stop. And then we would go to a more aesthetic, everything you would see from the street driving by would be the green and the, the white fence.
Consider that you may not be there. You may decide
Yes.
to move and there's business there. So we got to protect the property owner
Ahead of time, absolutely.
ahead of time, even though you are the property owner now.
And, if I did decide to go, the better I do at that, the more my residential property would be worth anyway. Because if I make a really nice, division, it's good for everybody.
So what are we allowed?
So one access point for every 100 feet.
Yes. I did my studying.
Everybody else have to say about what Gloria?
I think our approval has to be contingent on that fence. And I think we need to know what material you're going to use for that fence. And for the west fence, the same thing. So if you're going to use a polyvinyl equestrian style fence, specify that. And wherever you're going to put landscaping, specify that. We have to know what we're approving.
That's is there any fencing required that cures itself? The town hall.
No.
Because it's not residential.
Right.
Understand what you're saying. My question is, have you talked to the neighbors to see what they would be happy with?
Yeah, they want an 8-foot wall back there.
Like the
Um,
aesthetics of it?
Well, so they can't dictate what I do, and I'm gonna give them the option. I don't think Roy's gonna care, and I can't remember the gentleman directly behind us. But anyway, we were talking about doing a wall a couple of years ago, and he asked that if I'd be willing to do a wall that matches his wall on his east side of his property. So he has aesthetically some consistency down his east side and along his back. Technically, it's my wall because it's going to be 10 feet on my side of the property. But what I'll do is I'll price it out to where it's a block wall that meets the standards of the town. And then if he wants to pay the extra because he has like nice pilasters, every 10 feet, and then the kind of a little more of an expensive wall. And I'll give him the option to pay the difference between the cost of the regular wall and his decorative wall. So I'd be definitely accommodating there.
What do you mean by block wall?
Brick wall, block wall.
You say block, I'm thinking cinder block.
Oh, cinder block. No. I would say as far as I'm concerned, since we're going to have some of our structure is going to be a painted stucco, it would match my building. So if we do use cinder block, it will have a coating of stucco painted to match the building.
Do read so that we know exactly what, without any variation from that, what the ordinance calls for.
Screening between residential and non-residential. Screening shall be located on the site of the non-residential use along all property lines adjacent to an existing residential use, residential zoning or planned residential area. For masonry wall, it says a brick or masonry wall with stucco or mortar wash finish, both exterior finishes being the same, shall be constructed parallel to each property line abutting a residential use. Said wall shall be located 10 feet from the property line. Such walls may have one access point for maintenance per 100 linear feet of wall distance for maintenance of landscaping, and shall be a minimum of 6 feet in height and maximum of 8 feet in height, except that the first 25 feet in from the street right of way may be stepped down to a minimum height of 4 feet.
That wall.
So what you're speaking of with the stucco is exactly what the ordinance without
Calls
us.
for.
Yeah. So the only thing we need to talk about is
What are we satisfied with
finishing.
between his residence and
Right.
the business? And again, we need to be considering may not be there.
And that 100 feet isn't, you have to open it every 100 feet. You just have to.
Depends how much I like my landscape guy. So how far he wants to go around to mow the rest.
Well, if you have too many holes, then. what's the
Well, I
point
can
of a
keep the
wall?
gates locked too. I probably will keep the gates locked on my residential side to keep people from going over there.
For the west side.
I propose that we go ahead and do the 8 foot along the back, since that's the max we can go. And then along the back and about 30 feet down the west side. We taper the wall down to I think that 4 or 5 feet is that.
Total distance to the front of it, from the back of the property to the front.
Oh, it's like 600 feet.
It's 30 feet isn't very far.
Oh, no, it's not that far. It's far enough to certainly block the view of all neighbors behind me, for sure. So,
So take yourself out of that house and put somebody else in it. If we go along with your idea of stopping it at 30 feet and you're not there anymore, what are they going to be looking at? All the cars that are parked on that side. There's parking on that side, I think. And without us having you finish the screen to where that house is protected.
well, let's do it this way. If I was the neighbor, if I lived there and somebody was building something next to my house, I would want them to make something that I like that matches my property. And a good tree line that will fill in nicely with a fence that matches my residential property. If the guy that was building that thing agreed to building the fence that I wanted him to build, because it basically accents my property and it ties in with my fencing, I'd be like,
Well,
are you thinking that,
one thing I will tell you, because we had this happen already in the past, is we go along with the screening walls and then
die?
they die and you don't live there anymore and you don't have that building anymore, and then it's a problem that we can't go back after somebody after the fact. I think stepping it down might be from 8 feet. Step it down, but I don't know about.
You know, I have
that
another
wall.
point to make. There's more to just the wall and where it sits. From rural business zoning, the businesses to residential, that there's also another compatibility zone of the landscape. There's an extra 25 feet on top of the 10 foot from the property line that gives a long flow of landscape grass. And it then that'll turn into some parking stalls and the driveway that goes around the building. And what I'm thinking is, from visually, if it looks like, because things are so wide open around here. Everywhere you go, it just feels open. It feels like everything flows. I'm just thinking a solid wall down that thing is just going to be it's going to be such a divider that the property is going to feel like it continues on past the fence if we let it just go on. And if we did trees I think that's every 4 or 5 feet we have to do. And so there will be some visibility, but it's going to be such a good looking project that even if somebody buys the house next door, they know they're buying the house next to a good looking project.
They also, I wouldn't buy it because of the headlights and the cars coming in and out and seeing people waltzing around over there when we're used to wide open spaces with nobody in it. So that's me personally. I don't know that a wall is, I mean, we have other possibilities that maybe you could soften that by going, going, and I don't know visually, architecturally, if it's a good thing or not, but we also allow wrought iron with plants against it. And that might finish the rest of it too, which would delineate it off. I don't know. I don't know if that'd look tacky or good. But I'm worried that your trees, you can still see through them. If you're gonna put something up there, I don't think it meets the ordinance to leave it where you can see through it. So I don't know.
So,
Where's everybody else
Diane,
on
do you have an opinion on?
I see
on
that too, but
the
I also
wall?
don't want it to just be a big brick wall because that also makes it just anti-country and so it's kind of, yeah. It's still got to be 6 foot tall.
Pardon?
It's got to be 6 foot tall according to the ordinance.
It has to be no more than 8, but you can start stepping it down after you come to his 30 and drop it lower all the way.
Yeah, but it still
All the
has to be
way
6.
down.
Still has to be 6. No, it has to be 6.
Yeah, we can do a 6 footer. Matter of fact, my wife just told me, she said she'd rather not see the parking lot from our house anyway.
Oh.
So it's a matter of,
Wrought iron with the stucco or fence every so many feet,
Posts.
posts to break it up.
you know what, wrought iron, to me, it's the same issue with the trees dying, the plants die, then you can see through the wrought iron, you still have the visibility. I think I'd rather just build a wall.
Step it down.
Yeah, I'll just step it down to 6 feet after that 30 foot section. I'll step it down to 6 foot. I'll put my white vinyl gate fences in there. We'll paint the stucco to match the building. And my wife's happy, future neighbors are happy. And we have a good divider that people can't just walk right onto my property. So, I mean,
Which is an issue.
it is. I personally like the idea of the open. I don't agree with my wife necessarily because I wanted to kind of flow a little bit more. But you got a point. I mean, if I'm not going to live forever. Somebody else is going to live in that house someday, and we might as well give them something that gives them division.
Is it supposed to drop down to, it can drop down to 4?
25 feet from the road.
25 feet from the street line, maybe step down to a minimum height of 4 feet.
That way you can see over it with cars coming by.
I think we need to do the way the ordinance says.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
And drop it down to-
Sorry to, I mean, I actually like that. I like a matching stucco that matches the building, and we'll do it. So we'll,
Plant your wife some pretty plants on both sides of it so that she has something pretty to look at and not a wall.
yes, ma'am. Ma'am, yes, ma'ams.
I can't make you do that, but I think it would be. the
Oh, no,
kind
trust me,
thing
she
to
will.
do. Okay, my final question to you is about handicap spots. Do you still only need one for that enlarged building?
Oh, there's
On the
more.
map. There's 2.
I
think
couldn't,
there's,
I didn't see any
I think there was
others.
one for every. There's 3.
Okay, I only saw the one in the front, and so there's some on the side so that it won't be hard for people. Like,
2 on the west side. Because there'll be an entrance over there as well, and then the one
Good.
up front.
that's all I have. 10 once you answered that.
Questions?
Now, no, about way of really making it still go country and yet satisfying ordinance, so.
Well, what's satisfying and what's the first.
Right, yeah,
I know.
I
I'm not
agree.
Crazy about walls either. I thought that, well, I just think that it would be aesthetically pleasing. The step down, I've seen that in other places, where there's privacy required or something, but, you know, going from down and down and down and then having the landscaping, I think that would work great. And if it's 4 feet high, then you're not gonna get that much light from the headlights.
66.
Yeah, and it's, by then, it's pretty close to them.
So I got,
Their house is, that house is set back.
I have an idea. If you guys approve the 6 foot, we get the project underway. I still started getting bids for subcontracts and we get this thing rolling. I can at some point put in a request for an adjustment. Once I find a really cool fence where maybe we do come back 8 feet down to 6 and we come out halfway up. So when the cars that are coming around the back driveway, the only way that cars would actually hit headlights onto that property, and we drop it down to something that at some point we'll find a sweet spot where we come down, we do something that's, when you're driving down Jeter, you look at the property and it looks beautiful, but it also satisfies headlights and foot traffic back, because that house, my house is set way back there. And so what we can do is I can come to the table. We got quite a few months of stuff to do before we get to that. And then I'll bring another idea for a fence to you guys that's better than the 6 foot wall that I think will satisfy everybody.
You could apply for a site plan amendment that would go before planning and zoning and council.
Okay, so if we approve this tonight this way, like we're talking, then you have the option to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
That'll be $400 well spent.
Any, beyond the fence, we're done with the fence. Anything else beyond the fence that you have a question about? Town engineer, anything? You're good. I expected you to tell us something.
Designed a beautiful project. Give my guys a hand, man.
Yeah, you did a good job on it. It's very pleasing.
I'll tell Dan when you said that. My architect, he's awesome.
Please do.
Fence needs to. He has in there a wood fence, so we need to add.
The
motion
condition
needs to
that
say it needs to, the fence needs to.
meet rural business standards.
Motion to approve the site plan for Happy Huts LLC being attractive land being described as Block A, Lot 2R, Bartonville Town Hall Edition, Town of Bartonville, Dunn County, Texas, with the condition that the north and west walls meet the requirements of the town ordinance. Good, bro.
Sylvia.
Two, site plan amendment, Marty B's. This is to continue a public hearing that was from September. To continue public hearing to hear a public comment and consider recommendations to the town council regarding a site plan amendment for Rye Farm Properties LLC, being all of a tract of land being described as lot 1R-2R and lot 1R3, Block A, Dinkman Plaza Edition, Town of Bartonville, Denton County, Texas. The properties are generally described as a 3.433 acre tract of land and a 1.480 acre tract of land located on the west side of FM 407, more commonly known as 2664 FM 407, Bartonville, Texas. Planning and Zoning Commission moved to postpone this item to October 6th, 2021 by a vote of 5-0 at its September 1st, 2021 meeting. Staff.
Thank you. A site plan amendment application was received for the incorporation of the existing east parking lot into the site plan. There's also a proposed addition of a pole sign over the southern vehicular entrance and the addition of an accessory building that will be used as a smoker. No public comments have been received on this item to date. For the east parking lot, the applicant is again requesting to formally incorporate the 3,243 square foot east parking lot into the site plan. The parking lot is currently in use. It will be replatted following the site plan amendment to join the other lot. The east parking lot is proposed to use the same alternative material as was used for the north parking lot, which is a type A flex space, a crushed stone. The town council, with recommendation from planning and zoning, may consider a request for alternative parking material. The town council did approve the use of this alternative material in the north parking lot at its June 2019 meeting. Regarding the pole signage, the applicant has requested for the placement of a pole sign that will go directly above the entryway on the southern side of the property. So it will be facing IT Neely, but it does not go over IT Neely. It goes over the property's entrance. The pole sign is similar to a ranch entry style design. It has a letter B encircled in the center. The sign is 22 feet tall and 36 feet wide at its widest point, and it meets the 14-foot minimum vertical clearance for emergency vehicles. Pole signs are not permitted in the zoning district. However, the town council, with recommendation from planning and zoning, may consider a request for a variance to this article. For the accessory building, the applicant is proposing an accessory building with 680 square feet to house a smoker. It will be located on the southwest corner of the building footprint, and it is oriented towards the back property line. It will be constructed with the same or similar building facade and materials as the primary structure. The exterior will match the back dock area. There were a number of variances that the Board of Adjustment recently considered at their meeting just before this one. The BOA voted to approve the landscape variance regarding the 10% landscape dedication. The BOA also voted to approve the landscape berm and shrub row. They voted to approve the drive aisle width for the 90-degree parking layout. They voted to approve the accessory building orientation, and they also voted to approve the accessory building size. And the planning and zoning will need to consider the following items: the alternative parking surface material and the proposed ranch type entry pole sign.
Applicant.
Evening, Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Kara King with McAdams. The address is 201 Country View Drive, Roanoke, Texas, 76262. Okay, to start us off with the PowerPoint presentation, this is the land use plan, shows that the land use is Village Center, surrounded by Village Center, and then RE2 to the west. Next is the zoning plan showing that it's zoned Village Center. And then right here is the location. So we're mainly talking about Marty B's being the amended site plan. The east parking lot is right there to the east at the intersection of 407 and IT Neely. And then the north parking lot is just north of Marty B's. This is the plat that Sylvia spoke about. That all three lots will be platted as one. And then here's the amended site plan that we submitted, and you can see on the bottom left-hand corner, the southwest side of the building, the accessory building that is being added.
Accessory building on the south.
Yes, yeah, the southwest corner where the current contact.
Oh, it doesn't, right. Do that, Ralph. See it. Everyone also has a printed copy of these materials if it's easier to view the paper copy.
These are the elevations for the accessory building. You can see that it fits right in the space that's provided right there. The existing sidewalks stay, the existing parking stays, nothing's being taken out. The building is just being added. And here are the elevations, similar to what Sylvia said, these will match the building facade. Do we want to skip through the ZBOA and go down to the last two? Thank you. The next one. Yes, okay. So this is the first variance being requested to P&Z tonight. The alternate parking surface for the east lot to match the previous parking lot surface allowed for the north parking lot. Like Sylvia stated before, this is the same material that was used in the north parking lot and approved in 2018 or 2019. And that's what was used on this existing lot that is in use. And then the second is the proposed ranch type entry sign. The size and look of the sign represent the rural ranch image of Marty B's. Like she had mentioned before, this is over a 24-foot access easement, which is also a fire lane. And we meet the minimum height requirement of 14 feet. We are at 22 feet in height.
To be how tall?
14. Sir. And then I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
So I have a quick question. On that pole sign, is it solid or is just the little B hanging down?
It is open.
It's open with
Yes.
just the,
Yes.
okay, that's what I thought. I mean, it's a nice look.
All 407 or IT Neely. Yes, so yeah, it faces right towards IT Neely. It's about 10 feet off of IT Neely. 407, oh, it'd be hard for me to guess that, but it's past the 7-Eleven entrance. It's Marty B's original entrance that goes between Marty B's and his east parking lot. So it's quite a
It's
way.
past the back of the 7-Eleven.
Yes, that's correct.
Anyone to speak?
I did have one comment.
Already existing. So no, we will not, but we are putting curb stops to represent the parking spaces, which is not what's currently out there.
That would be my one concern is, especially if the next one develops to the north, there's nothing that's gonna hold that stone at the border. That, you know, maybe some sort of ribbon or something that kind of hold the stone on the edge of the parking.
How would we define that promotion?
Next section of these.
Oh, so it is that way on the other.
It's out the north.
Oh, okay. Good. So have you inspected that material? Do we know that that is the same?
It is the same. I mean, he is correct. The north parking lot was built with a concrete ribbon around it. The east parking lot was not built that way. It's existing. That's something that would have to go in and add.
Saying
match
that we
circles.
should match that.
The material is the same. The material is matched. It's the same parking lot surface as the north.
Paved parking, what you're calling a ribbon around a curve? Okay.
That, just look at photos. It looks like there's a lot of bare dirt. Not like a good 3 inches. Or anything on it. Got permitted up the site plan. Get the ribbon and stone. Kind of clean it up and make it look perfect.
Anyone to speak?
Marty Bryan, 2664 FM 407 Bartonville. Okay. What's my biggest challenge at Marty B's? Okay, so if we go and we add what he's suggesting we add on these concrete things, what is it going to do to my parking? We're going to have, well,
Just on the border.
on the border, not
Stone,
internally?
yeah, just keep the stone from washing out.
Okay, all right. Just on the outside parameter and maybe even on the north parameter, because at some point that is going to be developed to his point. So I definitely see the value in adding it there, but just as a note that we've been there for 2 years and we haven't had any runoff. The packing of it was done in the spirit as the north parking. And, you know, we've, just like any impervious top, you know, you're going to have to take and maintain it from time to time, which we have both in the north and also in the east parking. So I can only go with what's happened in 2 years.
So we need you to give Sylvia an explanation of where that ribbon needs to be. And I'm assuming you just agreed that you need to put it there?
Well, I said on the north side, it would probably be important because there's going to be space that I don't currently own that'll be developed to protect that. Ultimately, for me, I'm trying to live up to the principles and philosophies of the town of Bartonville, and that's to keep Bartonville country. The more concrete we have, the less country it feels.
I agree with that, but we do want to use our engineer abilities to tell us what to do. Anybody else? Okay, anybody else to speak for? Anybody to speak against? Then we'll close the public hearing at 8:05. Questions?
Well, Marty, your pole barn sets a precedent. As you know, we do not allow. So do you feel strongly about having this pole barn sign? And why do you feel that you?
Well, I think a couple things. One, it adds value to the space. And then again, it's in line with the spirit of Bartonville. You know, most of the properties around here are ranch in style and manner. And one of the reasons I'm in Bartonville is when I drove in on the top of 407 and see the big open space and the horse statues. It just feels right. And ultimately for me, I'm trying to do everything I can to add value to my space and make it complementary in nature to modern ranch feel. So I just think it looks cool. I think it's complementary to the town of Bartonville, complements the country feel. So that's why I want to do it.
So we need to.
My thought about, I agree with Ralph. We pay our engineer to advise us to do the best thing we can. And that strip he's talking about, how wide is that? I can't see, you got things in the way.
About 6 inches, which would be like that curve.
Right, I think that that's necessary. When you think back about the parking lot, your parking lot around your building is impervious. But then as you grew, we changed what we could legally have required with our ordinance for the pervious. But now it's really because it was overflow. Well, it's not exactly overflow anymore because your seating has grown in your restaurant. Now we're adding more seating in another restaurant. And yes, we're calling it overflow, but it's really now necessary. And so I don't have a problem with leaving it the way it is. We said that was okay, but I think that when our town engineer tells us that he thinks we should add that strip, then I think we should add that strip. That's what we paid for. He's got knowledge we don't. And 2 years isn't really a big, long time in the grand scheme of the life of that building. We hope you and Marty B's and Marty B's Coffee Shop is here 50 years down the road looking good with that one strip.
Well, thank you. And I hope to still be there. I just don't want to create one problem to satisfy one that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Because right now, if we have serious rainfall and lots of rain pouring in there, and now we're going to have a 6-inch curb, which I know we'll have some cutouts for water. I don't want that to create a space for when people step out of their vehicle. You know, are they going to be popping down into mud or
Is it
water?
creating a problem where it's at now?
Not at all. But it
Why
freely
should it
flows,
create-
right? It doesn't have a barrier. It doesn't have a 6-inch barrier keeping it all in.
Comment on that, Mr. Engineer?
Well, I'm really basing this off a couple of photos of driving through it today. And there's clearly a drainage path along that north edge. And you can see where it's already washing out and pushing away. So, yeah, how clearly comes through there.
That was for,
No, that's from Street. But you can see, like, just the whole edge isn't clean. And, I mean, I understand that the keeping country and want to do that, but I
That's the
also
north
look
side,
at it, right, so there's
That's a
gonna
cool
be,
bit.
yeah, as long as we can capture that and keep it from pushing off on your neighbor, and then even,
well, it would ultimately,
even spin it out.
it would have to be addressed in some way, right?
Yes,
It's gonna be there.
Yeah.
And there will be a curb there when it gets
there
developed to
will
the
be a
north.
curb.
There's gonna be a curb.
I
right
just would like
against-
to just do it on the north side. That's all I'm saying.
And I guess to respond to that, what I'd like to just see is have your engineer just look at the drainage around there and make sure that, like you said, basically that's all raised up a little bit, runoffs doing this, and we don't know what it did 3 years ago. So just making sure that change didn't cause an adverse impact sometimes.
So far, it hasn't.
Yeah.
I'm there every day. I'm there when it rains. I'm there when it's dry. I'm there when it snows. 6 inches. So far, it's been amazing.
Everybody think about the pole sign. I don't have a problem.
I like it.
It's Bartonville.
And it fits your buildings.
Accessory building. There's no residents anyways close to that. I mean, barbecue smell would bother me.
Yeah, not currently. So ultimately, the reason we're adding the accessory building is we're expanding our cooking capacity. So as we open up the coffee shop, part of what I'm going to use this additional space for is like a commissary to help support the barbecue. We're going to be serving out of that. And then as soon as we get the building built, our desire is to do mail order barbecue all around the country. And so we want to use that as a place for that. We've also developed our own line of beef jerky. We're going to use it for that as well. So that's the reason we're wanting to add the space so that we can compartmentalize what we're doing in that business that doesn't disrupt what we're doing in Marty B's business. So
Building fits everything, fits the ordinance.
Well, and the Board of Adjustment approved it already tonight.
Anybody else have a question about the building? So we're good with the building, we're good with the sign. Do you feel like we need to have some kind of engineering study to make sure that parking lot isn't gonna be a problem? I mean, it hasn't been a problem.
No, I think it's aesthetics as much as anything else, especially just that edge line. So the main concern for me was knowing that there's gonna be a development coming in the north pretty quickly and making sure that there's a clear edge to yours. You know what, that's not their job.
So we just need something from you to tell us where that needs to be, so that when it gets to town council, they have already in place what it is.
And Chris, would you be opposed to landscape edging and instead of a curb, since there's gonna be a curb when that proposed development goes into the north?
Yeah, so just something to hold that edge.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. So I need clarification. At first, we're talking about, or you talked about wanting it all the way. Now, are you shifting to only the north, or what do you really feel about this?
So my opinion for aesthetics, more than grading an engineer, with the edge on. But I think from an engineering perspective, if they can satisfy the north end, which is really the drainage concern, then I think that's fair.
So need a motion.
Said you do something else on the other sides.
I was just referring to the north side.
Oh,
I'll add just for comfort level, add a little more clarification. on this too. So the east edge and the south edge, Marty B still has 20, 30 feet on his property. So anything that washes out, is gonna move or whatever, is not gonna be impactful to anybody but himself. It's just a maintenance issue.
Gotcha.
But to the north, it can easily become someone else's property.
All right, so on the north, your recommendation is the strip thing.
I won't
What-
call it
what do
some
I
sort of-
call that?
Yeah, some sort of written.
Okay. And do we need to be specific on this about what that is or not yet?
Remember what he just said?
I
Sounded
don't-
like a landscape or concrete ribbon
And just leave it,
on the north edge of the east parking lot.
that meets the engineers,
When it gets
makes
to
the
town council,
engineer
he's
happy.
gonna have to say,
He'll
yes, it's
explain it.
okay.
Yeah, we'll have to say the same thing, but that's, I think that'll capture it.
Writing it down, I assume that you're gonna
I was writing down what he said. All right, I move that we recommend approval to town council with the addition of ribbon edging, either concrete or landscaping on the north side, as approved by our engineer.
Thank y'all.
Oh,
Goodness, so much wasted trees. We
I don't need to move.
How far you recusing? We're
Yes.
recusing? Oh. Oh. Oh, I see.
should have been the last one, so you could have just left early.
Okay.
I so forgot.
Why don't we change it so he doesn't? have-
Change it.
Yeah. Let's move this to the last time.
We need to make a motion to do that.
No, it's the chair's prerogative to reorder something.
I am going to change the order in the agenda. And we are going to do the last item next, which is, oh, never mind. We're going. Lost the button. Where is it?
E to number 6.
We're moving 3 to number 6. So the next one will be the Bartonville store and Ralph can come back in.
Now we're on number 4.
Item number 4, conditional use permit site plan amendment, Bartonville store. Public hearing to hear public comment and consider recommendations to town council regarding an ordinance amending the town of Bartonville Code of Ordinances. Chapter 14, Exhibit A, Article 14.02, Ordinance 361.05, zoning regulations by amending Chapter 11, Rural Business District, Article 11.2, uses permitted by amending an existing conditional use permit site plan for the operation of a restaurant and retail store located at 96 McMakin Road, Bartonville, Texas. The property to be considered for the conditional use permit is zoned rural business with restaurant and retail store as permitted uses by conditional use permit only. Staff.
The town received a request from the applicant to amend their existing CUP site plan for the Bartonville store. The amended site plan is to allow for an additional storage shed on the northwest corner of their property. The shed is 160 square feet and meets the setback requirements for rural business. There will be no effect on parking, and there have been no public comments received on this item.
Applicant.
Yes, my name is Tim House. I own the store, live at 96 McMakin Road on the wrong side of the street. I'm in Double Oak.
Oh,
I think it's a simple request. We're wanting to put a 10 by 16 foot storage building in the northwest corner of our parking lot because that's the pure corner and no one can park in the corner anyway, or else it'd be locked in. So we're just requesting a storage building. Mark Hitchcock would ask him to keep his eyes open for one that matched our architecture. He found one. When we install it, paint it white with black trim, it will look like it's been a part of the property for a while. So I think it's a simple request. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to address.
here to speak for? Raise their hand. Anybody to speak against? No one raised their hand. We'll close public hearing at 8:24. Questions? The ordinances.
I'm curious to know why you're not gonna put that on, leave it as a portable building instead of putting it on a foundation.
Why we're not going to put it on a foundation? Well, to be truthful, I felt putting on a foundation, making it a permanent structure might meet with more objections than showing that it could be moved if something came up.
This doesn't make this fall under something because it's not on a foundation in rural business. There's no issue with that.
No foundation requirements.
Second, all in favor? Unanimous.
I just took yours and made it last, so we do Montana Church. And then when we finish with one.
Item number 5, site plan, Lantana Community Church. Public hearing to hear public comment and consider recommendation to the town council regarding a site plan for the First Church of the Nazarene, Lantana Community Church, being all of a tract of land being described as Kincaid Lot 2R, Block A, Town of Bartonville, Denton County, Texas. The property is generally described as 10.09 acre tract of land located on the south side of East Jeter Road, more commonly known as 2200 East Jeter Road, Bartonville, Texas. At 8:26, we will open the public hearing. Staff.
So since the agenda posting, there's been a slight change, and so staff's recommendation is actually to postpone this item. After the agenda was posted, it was found that one of the building materials was incorrect, and it was generally noticed to the adjacent property owners and also in the newspaper. So and that is affected by one of the variances. So one of the variances from Board of Adjustment tonight was also postponed. And it was related to the building material. It was noticed as Formica when the real material is actually plywood. So I will have to send updated letters and an updated newspaper notice with the correct material. And so because there's a variance pending, staff's recommendation is to also postpone the site plan.
So there were 5, I think, variances requested. Can you tell us what happened to the rest of them?
Yes, they were all approved.
So we actually want a motion to continue the public hearing.
Actually, on this one, it's not required because we have to renotice everything. It doesn't matter if you,
So
I thought we were gonna renotice, but-
to
Oh.
request,
No, that's okay. Sounds like it'll be just as simple to do it the normal way. Leave the public hearing open, don't close it, and then just move to postpone to the next meeting, which is November 3rd. Continue is fine. Continue is fine.
Okay, I make a motion to continue this public hearing on, to hear the public comment and consider recommendation to the council for the site plan for the First Church of the Nazarene until November 3rd.
Second.
Here's a text item, number 6, before you go, Ralph, so don't forget. The next item is actually something you don't have to accuse yourself for, so.
restaurant with drive-through. Public hearing to hear public comment and consider recommendation to the town council regarding the definition and permitted uses of restaurants with drive-through service by amending the Town of Bartonville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Exhibit A, Article 14.02, Ordinance 361-05, the zoning regulations, Section 2.2, Section 13.3, subsection C15, Section 17.3, Section L, and Appendix C, Land Use Table. Staff presentation. I'll open public hearing at 8:30.
So the town has received a couple of questions, inquiries about a possible drive-through restaurant at Lantana Town Center, which is general commercial. And currently our town land use table and definitions, all of the language that you just read does not include drive-through for restaurants. The only drive-through permitted uses that are mentioned are for coffee shops, dry cleaning stores, pharmacies, or ATM and banks. So not restaurants. So this is to amend the land use table and our ordinances to include restaurants with drive-throughs in general commercial to be permitted through conditional use permit.
Don't really have say so. Do we?
So we review the site plans, just like we reviewed Dutch Brothers Coffee not too long ago. So we review the site plans, but the building permit process is through the freshwater district.
So we can't say that we don't want restaurants
Yes, we can.
in Montana.
Yeah. The zoning is applicable. The zoning doesn't allow it, so this would be a textual change to allow it.
So do we want to allow a drive-through restaurant?
It not allowed it, so we wouldn't have Burger King.
So we discussed the last time. Yes. I'm still not in favor.
What did you say? This isn't rural business, only general commercial. What do we currently allow? Because you did mention drive-throughs.
Drive-through is listed as for coffee shops, dry cleaning stores, pharmacies, or ATM banks. Let's see where those are. I believe those are also. Drive-throughs are conditionally allowed in village center and in general commercial, but only for those specific uses of coffee shop, ATM, dry cleaning, not restaurants.
This thing doesn't change village center. Only.
Only, right, only general commercial.
Final thing, read me the definition of coffee shop,
Oh, of coffee shop?
because that's already allowed.
I don't know that we have a specific definition for coffee shop.
So if McDonald's sells coffee, then what's to stop them from saying I'm a coffee shop and putting a drive-through in anyway?
For town staff.
Doesn't
Yes,
have to
we
be the
don't
majority of your
have a-
sales. Like you can't say you're a coffee shop when the majority of your sales are hamburgers.
Not have a specific definition of coffee shop.
Someone specifically asked.
Sure that if it's
Sure.
not- Okay. So the inquiries have been for Whataburger. Did that change your opinion?
Yeah.
I knew that's what it was gonna be. It was gonna be fast food. That's the whole reason we did.
So the inquiries that I've gotten are for a possible Whataburger location, and they're interested in setting up here right across Kroger. And that's our general commercial district.
Well, see that property there is going to be developed. And that was the whole idea.
So legally, we could just say, no, we don't want to allow that drive-through restaurants.
It's a request
How
to,
big a problem is that going to cause us?
I have no idea, but they're asking you to open up a door and change something, and that's within your discretion to either say yay or nay.
Two.
Do we have an applicant presentation?
Staff.
Anybody to speak in favor of this? Anybody to speak against it? We'll close public hearing at 8:36. Anybody have any more comment? Motion.
Motion to retain the current definition.
It would be to deny the requested change.
Motion to deny the requested change.
So I guess the Sonic at the end of Bridgetown. Is that's it's on this side. It's not Bartonville.
That's Argyle. You guys are lucky. I don't want it the other way. So it was in and out.
Stop.
I think that you're 277.
But all
It's in
that
Frenchtown,
side of Bridgetown was
the gas station.
Half of it.
half of it.
There's a section on the south side that belongs to Argyle or is ETJ, and then all of the north side is Argyle. It quits being us at French.
Town goes all the way.
Oh, I mean where Jeter hits. When Jeter comes out, anything
Jeter.
south of that is not even ETJ limit. All right. What page does trifecta start on? Do you know?
It's these plans. Oh, on the,
79.
Sylvia, did you have something for me to sign?
yes, please.
She just lost something. Oh my gosh.
Right here, folks. We're running you out.
Sit in the audience, so you can sit out there. but-
Item number 3, discuss and consider recommendations to the town council regarding the preliminary plat for the proposed trifecta estate subdivision containing approximately 20.26 acres. The proposed development will create 8 individual single-family lots and 1 HOA lot. The property is generally located on the east side of McMakin Road, more commonly known as 459 McMakin Road. Staff presentation.
Applicant has applied for a preliminary plat for the 20.26 acres generally located at 459 McMakin. The land is currently zoned RE2 and the surrounding zoning is either RE2 or agriculture. The development name is Trifecta Estates and it contains 8 single-family residential lots, each of them at least 2 acres. There is also a 1.2 acre HOA lot for the retention pond. There is 1 proposed cul-de-sac street named High Meadow Court that stems off of McMakin Road. And the applicant has provided utility availability letters for electric, gas, and water. There is also a request to waive the official utility reviews until the final plat.
Applicant,
Greg Mills, 1201 Knox Road in Keller. Good evening.
To us.
Well, yeah, you kind of have my presentation here. We've are creating 8 2-acre lots and meeting all the city requirements. Thanks to Sylvia. Looking for preliminary plat approval.
This doesn't say anything about this being.
It's just a discuss and consider.
Does anybody have questions before we go on to any, speak in favor, against, or do you want to hold on? Anyone in favor who wishes to speak? Those opposed? No rebuttal? We will close public comment at this point, and now it's time to discuss. Anybody have anything? We had, when this was originally presented, there were questions from neighbors, great concerns about the runoff issues, which I know you're aware of. And Chris, I'm assuming were you at that meeting when we had people terribly worried about?
No.
Apparently there's big trouble over there, and it really doesn't have anything to do with him, but their concern was with more impervious surface, that it was going to make things worse. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that in anything that comes up. And the question that I had was, if you're comfortable with what you're seeing, there's not a lot of stuff in here about drainage, I don't think, is there? Other than the retention pond.
Fact that they've already allocated acre area for some sort of detention. If we have to work out the numbers as far as the pond size, I'm confident whatever that is, there's adequate area here within this lot to cover that final solution.
And then my other question was, I was looking at the tree removal, and I know most of them are mesquite. But there's also some on lot 8 in particular, there were some really good trees that apparently have to be removed, and I wanted to ask you if there's any way to save some of those, or I don't want to mess up your plans either, but I was kind of curious about that. Yes, please.
Obviously, we would like to save every tree possible, and I've already gone over it with our dirt contractor to adjust everywhere we can to save trees. We're also been speaking with Sylvia about whatever mitigation we have to do. The numbers have been calculated about every tree on there has been surveyed, what type of tree, how big diameter, and we have those numbers and what we need to replace.
This is just the pits to try to find this when you don't have paper. I've marked in yellow all this stuff, and then I can never find it when I'm sitting up there.
I don't think it either.
They asked a question in the meantime, Gloria.
Yes, please.
With respect to drainage, I seem to recall your documentation cited that swales were going to be installed by the developers. Is that correct?
Yes, all the drainage, not only from our side, but there's about 20 acres that's off-site that drains onto our property. And there will be swells in this plan. There are swells in the plan that diverts all of the runoff into the detention pond. And then it is slowed down to the proper rate.
Chris, are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
And this new road, that's going to be a public road? And with respect to the abandoned wellheads, what are you doing there?
We've had to provide XTO access to that for maintenance. I have a letter from XTO as far as what maintenance means. And that means every about 40 years, possibly the cap that is on there can rust out, and then they would go put a new cap on it. This is only a few years old, so there's actually no scheduled maintenance that they have. It's only in the event that something rusts out over time.
So
But basically, I didn't finish answering your question, sorry. They will be cut off level with the ground and little concrete, like a 2-foot round piece of concrete, you know, like you would see on a water valve, you know, in the street, is what the finish of those wellheads will be.
Did you tell us when we were speaking before that those wells are already capped? I mean, they're already capped and full of
They're
cement.
capped and abandoned as we speak. They are capped up here. And as soon as we have our final grading, XTO will come out, cut them, recap them at ground level, and then we'll pour a little 2-foot round piece of concrete around it.
That lot that gave me pause, when you look at the pictures, it doesn't look like there's that many trees on there, which I guess is why I wanted to ask you about that lot age. Because you're taking out a live oak, 2 bur oaks, a Chinese elm, another bur oak, another Chinese elm, cottonwood, which are issues. Those were the only Chinese elm, another live oak, all of those really good trees on that one lot. The rest of them had mesquite and stuff. So there's
Even one tree on that lot. One tree.
Just happened to be in the right spot.
I mean, along the edge, I don't understand why those like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 are being removed.
And Pilot 8.
Oh, because that's in a drainage easement. There's going to be a swell. That's actually, if you look on a drainage plan, all the water that's going toward the south will be captured along a swell right where those trees are and diverted into the detention pond.
So we couldn't do a swell like right behind that.
If I'm not mistaken, the 3-to-1 slopes that we're required to have makes that swell, about 12 feet wide at that point, and that's right where the trees are.
How about 11, 12? Oh, excuse me, 13 and 14.
Those stay.
According to this, on number 8, you're taking every single solitary tree out except one mesquite.
So on the very last page of the printout, there is a table for each lot. And it gives you which trees are proposed, bless you,
I'm sorry.
You're fine. Which trees are proposed to be removed, which ones are protected trees? And then there's some comments about where those trees lie, whether they're within utility easements, drainage easements. So for those in particular, 10 through 14, they are protected trees and they are requested to be removed. However, they will mitigate and have to plant 2-foot tall trees, which is in accordance with our tree preservation.
New trees don't always live, and that doesn't really replace a 20-inch or a 12-inch existing tree that.
So our tree preservation ordinance says that there's certain trees that need to be protected. There's a list of types of trees, but any tree also within that is at least 12 inches in diameter is also considered a protected tree. So those must be protected unless they're located within 4 feet of a building pad or right of way or utility easement.
Some of them do say drainage easement, but the whole top of them do not. They just say protected, yes, remove, comment, plant 2-inch tree. It doesn't say why they're being removed.
There's actually an existing drainage ditch that is going through these trees. I remember now. That has to be filled in to get this lot up above 2 foot minimum above the water level of the detention pond. So in other words, they would be covered up, the trunks would be covered up and they wouldn't survive.
Out of all these lots, there are really good trees.
And about 20 new trees across the front of the property.
The trees that they replace them with, they have to be
2-inch diameter.
That's what I thought.
yeah, minimum width of 2 inch measured at 4 feet 6 inches above the ground. Replacement trees shall have a minimum height of at least 6 feet.
Somewhere along there, I thought you said 2 feet. Had to be 2 feet tall. Probably. What? Oh, okay. Well, I did it. It was like.
I
wait a
misread,
minute.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I have a question. Has your company been contacted? I mean, we were here when the public got in the first place. And I'm just wondering if any of those people who live there with all their concerns about the runoff, have they, I don't see any of them here tonight. So have they contacted you anymore?
Yes,
about their concerns?
Yes, one of the neighbors, and I'm sorry, I'm not recalling his name. I think it's John for some reason. Brought me pictures showing the flooding at his house and all of that, and trying to explain to him that the post runoff will be less than it is now because of the detention pond. Since then, knowing also that we would have to satisfy those requirements by the city, he hasn't reached out to me after that.
Yeah, so basically, there's, like you mentioned, several acres of runoff basically should flow across the property. And as part of the subdivision, they're gonna capture all that, bring it into the detention pond, and then release it at a much smaller rate. So the neighbors, instead of seeing a huge peak, I'm still gonna end up with the same amount of water, but it'll take 6 hours instead of 2, whatever. They'll capture that 100-year
So there was, in the paperwork, words were changed from, is it a detention pond or a retention?
It's both.
Says there's a difference.
Yes, there is a difference. This pond is a retention and a detention. A retention will hold water, so this will be a water feature with a permanent water level, 650 feet to be exact. And from 650 to 653 will be the detention. And that 3 feet of volume of water is what is capturing the rainwater and letting it out slowly. So from 50 to 53 is your rain runoff collection, and then it will drain down to a constant level. Actually proposing 2 fountains on there too.
But besides, isn't it?
That's a pretty good size.
We're gonna leave that up to the HOA to determine that one.
Snakes and turtles. And put fish in the pot.
Most likely.
Okay.
So I just have one more question. So by building up, like you said, for example, lot 8, and you're going to try to make sure that everything drains into the pond. So nothing should be draining off. That would be away from the road on lot 8 to those neighbors. That should not happen. And our town engineer is fine with that.
No water running from our property at all to the neighbor to the south.
Yeah, there's a large drainage kind of in the middle of the property. East and west, to capture and bring it down. Down into the pond, that what releases it's going to go down.
Are those Wolf Hill properties, aren't those quite a bit higher than your?
Part of the runoff, which is on its existing, sorry, I don't have that page memorized. Okay, it's C8. If you look at C8, you can see how much of offsite water is actually coming onto theirs, which is the ones you're talking about. There's 2 lots. Excuse me, two lots that run on the east side, and then there's 1, 2, 3 lots in that subdivision that comes onto our property on the north side. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's runoff from 5 lots in that subdivision that is coming onto this property that will ultimately end up in that detention pond.
Wow, no wonder those people have been having so much trouble. This really is going to be.
It's the page C8 it shows how much offsite that we're actually collecting. I'd like to think so.
I did have one question to think about. So that the well that you mentioned as maintenance in the future, does that need to have an easement?
Yes, there is that. Yes, that's a 35-foot easement required by XTO. Yeah, and they're again, they're quote unquote maintenance. There is no actual scheduled maintenance. It's only in the event something rusts out.
How would they know that? If they come, if they don't come and check it on occasion?
You know,
And I
that's a
guarantee the
question I
railroad
have
would
not
know.
asked XTO yet, if they send someone out like on an annual basis to check that. It's a good question that I'll look into.
But because I were looking at your lot, you said I had an easement on it for that. That they were gonna check it until, unless I would have to go out there and find a big rusty hole and then camp.
I've been told about 40 years.
Well, and I'm sure that will help mitigate any questions with.
So we have that documented from XTO.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes.
You know what the watershed area is for that pond?
It's somewhere like 30 acres.
15 to 1.
Yeah.
I motion to approve the preliminary plat for the proposed trifecta estate subdivision containing approximately 20.26 acres. The proposed development will create 8 individual single lots and 1 HOA lot. The property is generally located on the east side of McMakin Road, more commonly known as 459 McMakin Road, Bartonville, Texas.
Just the site plan for the church will be coming up. Trying to think. Breaks Plus will also be coming in with their site plan as well. That's a light auto maintenance, also in the Lantana Town Center area. Breaks Plus, it's a brakes.
Pro repair.
Brakes. Yes.
Or is it for across, from?
Cross
Kroger?
Kroger, yes. Possibly some of the final flats from Mr. Oasis, yeah, for Hudson Ranch. And that's all that comes to mind at this moment.
Unless there's anything else on this. Close the meeting at 9:03.
Oh, I'm still sick about the trees. I don't like the tree.